Welcome, everybody, and greetings. I'm Jay Tucker. I run the Center for Management of Enterprise and Media, Entertainment, and Sports, otherwise known as the Center for Memes at UCLA Anderson School of Management. And I'm really excited today because I get to have a conversation that I think is going to be a lot of fun for many of you. We've had a very, very interesting year here at UCLA, obviously with the pandemic, with lots of changes, both at the UC system level and here at the UCLA level. One of the changes that makes me really happy is that we have a new head of athletics here. So I get a chance finally to sit down with him. So I want to welcome Martin Jarmond, who's UCLA's Alice and Nahum Lainer Family Director of Athletics, otherwise known as our AD. Martin, thank you so much for joining us.
Jay, it's good to be with you and all the other Bruins that are listening in.
So just so you know, the way we're going to handle questions, you will see if you move your mouse down to the bottom of the screen, there is a chat button. If you want to ask questions during the conversation, please chat them and I'll incorporate them into the conversation. Again, if you just slide your mouse, really, if you just wiggle it, you will see that there's a chat button at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to jump in with questions as we go. We're going to
love questions. Don't be shy. Jump right in. I love questions. That's better than hearing me pontificate on something. So love the questions.
All right. You heard the invitation from the man himself. And with that, my first question is really straightforward, because Martin has been here now for about a year. And if we look back about a year ago, there was quite a bit going on in the real world and here on
8 months, actually, to be exact. 8 months.
Right.
Don't
8
give
months.
me a year yet.
Right. But we had from, going back to last year, right? We had the pandemic. We had Black Lives Matter protests. We actually had some conversations between UCLA and law enforcement in terms of the way they were using some of our facilities. There's so many things that were going on just as you were easing into the role. Martin, could you just take us back to that time and talk a little bit about what the landscape looked like for you and how you, approach that?
Yes, it was a chaotic time and for everybody, obviously during the pandemic, but to start a new job, move 3,000 miles across the country, and come into a situation hot, meaning there were so many different issues swirling. It was a challenge, and it was a chaotic time. And what I tried to do was really focus when things are in chaos. You try to bring calm. It's like the eye of the storm. So you try to have a sense of normalcy and just kind of keeping things consistent and normal. What can you control? What do I need to do? Focus on one thing at a time, and that's what I try to do. But we had a lot going on. A lot of the things, quite frankly, I hadn't even officially started yet. After you mentioned the protest and the Black Lives Matter and the murder of George Floyd, that was something that really hit a lot of people in our country hard. And I had not even officially started yet here at UCLA. But I had started to have conversations with student athletes, even though I wasn't officially on the job. And one thing I recognized quickly was our student athletes wanted to hear from me, but wanted to hear from UCLA and wanted to do something. And so that's partly how the voting initiative, education initiative was born out of our department. We were the first ones in the country to have a voter registration initiative. It's not so much just to vote, but also to get registered. And I'm proud of that. That was something we started, I think it was in July. And, I think we had about 97% of our student athletes get registered eventually to vote and have their voices heard. So it was a lot going on, but, we made it through that period and we're moving on.
I love it. And here we are now with lots of good news, right? But we just, we're in the tournament, we're doing some things. How do you feel about where we are right now?
I feel great. I mean, congratulations to our men's basketball program, made the NCAA tournament, first time in 2 years, I believe. And, with it getting canceled last year. And so more importantly than that, though, I'm proud of our men's and women's basketball teams for going the whole regular season without any, and I'm knocking on wood here, without any COVID issues or stoppages. And that's remarkable. That's really more important. Just playing the season, allowing our young people to do what they love to do and compete. That's something I am so proud of our student athletes for, the determination, the dedication to each other, And, it's hard for people, especially young people, to have that kind of level of discipline over months, to really look after your teammates and preserve something that you really want. So proud of our basketball teams and a lot of our sports that are competing now.
Absolutely. And it's funny because you talked about this kind of this window where you were just showing up, getting to know some of the student athletes, some of the people on the staff. And I know you came in with a plan to capitalize on UCLA strengths and to bring the best out of the program. And what you just said about I'm trying to bring a sense of normalcy, kind of focus on the most important things. What were your most important things? What was the message when you first showed up?
Well, the first thing I really wanted to do was listen, because you can't come into a new situation, a new organization, and think you have all the answers. For me, I needed to learn more about what it means to be a Bruin. What does it mean to be in this UCLA community? What does it mean to be a good teammate? I can't lead effectively unless I become more knowledgeable and a great follower to what we're already trying to accomplish, the mission of the institution, where we want to go, who we are. And so we announced before I started MJ Listens, and it was a listening tour, and it's still going on. We've had over 100 sessions. A lot of it is easier because it's Zoom, so I've been on a lot of Zoom calls, but really with students, faculty, staff, just all kinds of fans. I've listened to a lot of people, and so that was the first thing, is really trying to get a sense of UCLA. And then there were some things that, quite frankly, happened that we were not anticipating, that you had to jump in. We had our former, I don't say the name, apparel company decided that they didn't want to be in a partnership with us anymore, our athletic program, and that was even before I started. And I had to jump all in to that situation and work through that for a few months. And so that was big. That was really important. And then obviously the football season, the Pac-12 had announced we weren't going to play. We were going to play in the winter or spring, and then we reversed course. And we did a lot of behind the scenes work with LA County and the state and the conference to put our young men in a position to compete and play. And that was important. And UCLA was one of two schools in the conference that did not miss a weekend of competition. We played 7 straight weekends, and we were one of two schools out of 12. Everybody else had stoppages. Some schools only played 3 games, 4 games. So that's something that I'm proud of. Again, the commitment of our student athletes to the task at hand.
So go back to that time when you're looking at our brand partner and that relationship changing. That seems like a lot to put on your plate, and it seems like something where you would have had to kind of coordinate with a lot of different folks, because that had actually been in place for years. How do you even manage a situation like that?
That's a book. That's a chapter. I'm serious. That's not even a chapter. That's a book. Because the thing that people don't understand is, you're new into an organization. You don't even know people. So I was in a situation where I'm talking to our UCLA legal team, some of our advisors, different people, getting perspective, and I've never met the person. The first time I talked to one of our chief legal officers at the university was about this, and so a lot of times during a pandemic, when you take a new job, the most important thing to me in relationship building is trust. I have to trust you, Jay, that you're going to do what you need to do, and we're going to work together and help one another and do what's best for whatever the common goal is. But when you don't have trust, that makes it challenging, because you don't know who to turn to. You don't know who's important, who's not, what opinions to listen to. So the hardest part about that was you're tasked to do something that's really important and significant, and you have to kind of and keep it to yourself and confidential. But at the same time, I've got to understand, why didn't this partnership work? I have to understand, what is it that we want? I have to understand from our student athletes, alumni, the culture of UCLA and what fits and what doesn't. And so that was an interesting process, because you take that for granted. Usually when you do things like this, you have established relationships with people that makes it easier to kind of go through something. But it was almost like 2 fronts. It was dealing with the fallout from this breakdown in the partnership. Are we going to get all of our gear for the games this year? having to, going through legal with our outside counsel, but also I've got to find a new partner. So you're dealing with two fronts at the same time that are both very important to our current student athletes, but also to the future of UCLA. And it was interesting, but again, focused on what's most important, and having a belief in yourself, and understanding and adapting really quickly to understand the landscape and who we are culturally, what we need, what's best moving forward. That's what we did.
So who are we culturally?
Barrier breakers, leaders. We transcend not just higher education, but all over the world, different areas. Bruins are leaders. And if you look at our athletics history, we're never in the back of the line. We're up front, and so that's something that's really, I learned that very quickly. And our expectation when young people, young men and young women come to UCLA, they want to be the best. They want to compete at the highest level. They want to get a great academic education, and they want to thrive socially. They want to be on the cusp of change and leadership, and that's important. And UCLA provides that opportunity, that platform, and that's who we are. So make no mistake, we're not going to be waiting and looking to see what's going on. We're going to be at the forefront with our values and step up. And that's what we did. And that's why we landed with Nike and Jordan Brand, something fresh, unique, that separates us. And they are elite, like I think of us in our athletic department as elite, not elitist, elite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's funny you bring that up, because there are institutions out there. First of all, you've worked with some of the top athletic programs in terms of on-field success that there are in the country. One of the things that I've always found very interesting about UCLA's athletic or student athlete culture is exactly what you pointed to around leadership. When we think about the folks that we remember most fondly, it's not simply because they were successful on the field, but in many cases they brought about social change, or they represented something that was really unique at the time, whether we're talking about Jackie Robinson or Kareem or Arthur Ashe or our women's gymnastics team right now, right? I think people look at what we've accomplished over the years through athletics as a window into a level of kind of achievement and leadership that isn't just about winning, right? And I think what you said about leadership, that rings so true. And I know, you use that word elite. I know that, that also means something, and that's something that you've been communicating across the campus. Could you just expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, elite, that's something that I thought of the more I learned about UCLA and who we are and what we're about and where we want to go, more importantly, where are we going? And elite is the word that comes to mind, and that's energy, leadership, integrity, toughness, and excellence. And that's elite. It's a mindset. It's not how many championships or how many games you win. It's every day having the focus, the drive, the passion, the energy to serve in the way that you can do it the best to help us be elite. And that's who we are. So energy, passion, leadership starts with ourselves. I like to say mind right, game right. You can't, your game cannot be good unless you and your mind and your body are good. What does that take? What does that mean for you? Integrity, we're not going to cut corners. We're going to do things the right way. Toughness, you got to have grit. You got to see it through. 90% of it's not just showing up. It's holding on to that rope when everybody else is letting go. It's hard. It's hard to be great. Embrace that. And then excellence, and that's who UCLA is excellence. We expect the best. We want to be the best. And again, it's not just winning games. It's how we develop, how we serve, and how we compete every day.
So what's interesting there is translating that, especially in an environment where these games are evolving all the time, right? We talk about the sports landscape, just the on-field play, strategies and tactics, conditioning, all that stuff is evolving. At the same time that when we look at the scope of what it means, what is, a university athletics program and what sports are included in that. Now we're talking about video games and esports, like club sports getting, becoming, having a different kind of role and stuff like that. And then some of these, what I'll call Olympic sports or global sports that are becoming more popular in North America. Soccer is a great example of that.
Yes.
I know that you've got your own background as an athlete, but it doesn't span every sport that we offer. How do you manage all of those activities and help make sure that these folks have the resources they need to actually meet that standard of elite?
It's a constantly evolving process. You have to look within to see who we are, where do we want to go, and what are the steps. Not plans, not strategy. What are the steps to move towards that? It's a process that is constantly evolving and changing. One thing that I know is I don't have all the answers. I just know that as a program, we have to be nimble and adapt to changing environment. Right now, college athletics is under significant amount of stress and change. I really think in 18 months, college athletics is going to look very different. It will not look the same. There's an Austin case at the Supreme Court level. There's name, image, and likeness. There's one-time transfers. There are things that would fundamentally shift how we operate. And our job is to think through, when the smoke clears and the dust settles, how does UCLA come out on the other end as leaders and stronger than before in the marketplace? Because that's what's important to me. We have two jobs, in my opinion. It's talent recruitment and talent development. That's it. We recruit talent and we develop talent. That's because you got to simplify things. There's a lot going on. Recruit talent, develop that talent. And that's what we try to focus on. So there's a lot going on. You don't always have the resources that you like, especially in this environment. So you got to be more innovative. What are our strengths? Let's build on our strengths, our brand, our excellence, the people we have that make up UCLA. Our alumni network is huge. Tap into that more. We may not be able to outspend certain schools and what they do, but can we out innovate? Can we outwork? Yes, absolutely. And that's what we have to try to do more of.
And so when we talk about developing talent, it's so funny because I have very strong passions as somebody who actually got, his MBA here at UCLA. I feel very strongly about making sure that our student athletes get the most out of the UCLA experience. And you just mentioned alums, and I feel like there's an opportunity there for us to find other ways, one, to connect our student athletes with alums, but also to help keep them in the family when they themselves become alums, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those things, and it's just one example of the many ways that we can think about developing these young people beyond developing their skills as an athlete. Can you just talk a little bit, when you say recruit talent, develop, what do you mean when you envision developing talent? What are your hopes and dreams?
Yeah, it's something that is the focus point of what we do as coaches, as administrators, as staff. And that's, how do we take someone when they get to Westwood as a 17 or 18-year-old young man, young woman, and develop them holistically? Not just ball. You won't hear me talk a lot about ball. I'm talking about the whole person. How do we help you become the best version of yourself? So when you leave Westwood, you're ready to change the world. You're ready to lead. You're ready to step up when you're called upon, and you understand resiliency, toughness, all of that stuff that you need to learn as in these formative years. So I look at development in the whole person. And part of that too, and you mentioned that, as far as looking at the situation or looking at our alumni network, we need to do a better job of tapping into our alums. We have, and I'm still learning this, we have amazing alumni. And that's something that we've just got to tap into. One, it's the right thing to do. Two, it engages our alumni and helps them lean in and serve and give back in a way that's more meaningful. When you invest in a young person, like there's to me, there's no better reward than seeing your time and your energy, and someone takes that and runs with it and gets better. Like that's a legacy, right? And so that's really important. But I look at development as far as the whole person. How are we doing academically? That's always going to be there. But what are we talking to you about socially? How do we talk to you about your brand and what you put out there? How do we talk about the pressures of social media? Everybody looks at the TikTok and the followers, and what about the pressures? How are we preparing you to deal with that, to handle that? When it's not going as well. Though the mental health, we saw that a lot this year. The challenge of the roller coaster, we're playing, we're not playing, this is happening, we're on campus, we're not. What are we doing to help you with that? And then finally, one thing that I think we've got to do more of is how are we helping you for when you need to get a job when you leave here? You know, professionally speaking, not most of our student athletes are not going to play professionally in their sport. You know, so what are we doing to help prepare you for those skills you need, whether it's interviewing, networking, understanding the persona of I was an athlete my whole life and now I'm not an athlete. That's a challenge. That was one of the hardest things I had to deal with, is my identity as a student athlete. And then you finish and it's like, okay, now go out in the real world and work. And you're like, whoa, you know, so that was tough, but that's,
and that's real because
because
every athlete eventually becomes a former athlete.
That's right.
It's just a question of when.
It's a question of when, and everybody deals with it in a different way, but it's a challenge because you identify with that for so long. You've been playing since you're 5, 4, 6 years old, you know, so that's one thing that I'm starting to think more about, that we have to.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it's funny, you know, we offer summer courses really aimed at student athletes, to try to help them better understand the business of entertainment and sports and media. But obviously, when we talk about where these young people are going to take themselves, I mean, they're here at UCLA. Some of them are ultimately going to become doctors, engineers, lawyers, all kinds of other stuff. And so, you know, helping them find that lane, what's that other thing? What's the offsuit? You know, obviously we want everybody to be Troy Aikman, right? But,
that would help.
Right. But you know, dealing with student athletes where they are and trying to make sure that there are opportunities for them, I think that's really important. The other thing, you know, which I find really interesting, especially at this juncture in history, is that, you know, traditionally our student athletes who are women, knew up front that most of their opportunities were either going to be overseas or off the court. And I don't know that that's as true today, because we now have professional sports leagues right here in the United States where you know, student athletes can transition and continue to play professionally and so on. But still, for many of those women, you know, thinking about, okay, where do we fit in, you know, as well as trying to push forward so that those sports teams, leagues stand on the same footing as the male counterparts. That's some difficult calculus to work through also. And I feel like, you know, UCLA and UCLA athletics can be one of the platforms to help folks figure that out.
Absolutely. It's important because, you know, not everybody's going to have professional opportunities regardless, male, female, you know, I don't know the percentage, but I would bet that in most athletic departments, less than 2% of your student athletes go pro in that sport. So you're talking about 98% that are going to work like you and I right now, finding your way and trying to, you know, the average person has what, 11, 12 jobs in a career, and understanding how to navigate those experiences. So that's really important.
And so it's funny because apparently we've touched a nerve. We've got our first question, which is essentially, how do you plan to help student athletes transition to life after sports?
Yeah, well, we have a student athlete development area, and Rick Coy does a great job with that. But probably, you know, we have to start talking about anything that has to be a priority. You've got to talk about it more. You know, you can't just leave it on a shelf and put it up and then look at it. So we've got to talk more about that. I still have to learn some of the things that we are doing. You know, obviously, I don't know every asset of the university and just kind of how we do that, but one thing I definitely know I want to do more of is tap into the university as far as what the services are that we can partner up. I know some of that we do with the Alumni Association now, but we need to increase our partnerships across campus because a lot of things you may try to do, you learn that there's another unit on campus or there's expertise. You know, we're talking about name, image, and likeness. Last weekend, I was telling our team, you know, we need to talk to the law school and the Anderson School, because I'm sure that there are some professors and really some expertise that could help us as we're talking through this new landscape. So, you know, so I say all that to say it's a priority. And so, you know, I've been here 8 months, not 8 years, and I'm still learning, but that's something that I'm having constant conversations or thinking about. How do we best help young people when they leave here with that identity of who they are, not who they are, but what they are. They, you know, you're not your sport, you are this person. And that transition, we're thinking more about that and how that fits into student athlete development professionally, but also mental health, because it all comes together.
Yeah. Now, so I realize that we've used this term 2 or 3 times now, and not everybody joining us today is going to be as familiar with it. When you say name, image, and likeness, what are you referring to? What's going on?
Yes, right now, sorry about that. Name, image, and likeness is something that is a big topic in college athletics right now. So in the Division I and NCAA, right now, student athletes are not allowed to be compensated or profit off of their name, image, and likeness, meaning they can't go out right now. If you have a YouTube channel that you sing, you can't make money based on NCAA rules. You can't make money off your name, image, and likeness like maybe a normal student on campus can. You can't accept those dollars if you're going to be a student athlete. So that's something right now that a lot of states, I want to say at least 20, 22 or 23 states have passed legislation that's going to come in the future as far as allowing that. The NCAA is working through that now to try to come up with something by August 1st to have in place to break that down to where you can have, you can take advantage of name, image, and likeness, or NIL as we call it, but with some guardrails, and understanding there's certain things that may be allowed, but some things that might not be consistent with our values as far as competitive play and recruiting and those kind of things that go into it.
Right. So this is a really interesting area because it's an example of where we make special considerations for student athletes that don't apply to all students, because there are potentially some conflicts of interest when we talk about what motivates a student or incentivizes a student to come to UCLA to play their hardest, to compete at the highest level, et cetera. When we bring in these outside considerations, obviously, if there's an opportunity to make money in media, whether that's social media, traditional media, or whatever, that becomes a factor that affects a student's decision-making, motivation, incentives. And so it is complicated, but I love the fact that, folks are exploring right now, what can we do to create a fair environment for our student athletes so they at least have a chance, right, to benefit from the reputation they make for themselves.
And I'm a big proponent of, and I've always been, of name, image, and likeness. Some of my colleagues, other athletic directors in the country, are fighting it or have been fighting it tooth and nail. To me, we're in the education business. We should be, I look at it as an opportunity to help our young people with their brand, understanding the pitfalls of social media and decisions you make now, how they may impact you later when we're so short-term in nature and thinking long-term. This is a development opportunity. This is an educational opportunity. So I hope it gets passed in short order. So now we can start, how do we help our young people deal with name, image, and likeness and help them position themselves, their brand, their name, what they choose to get involved with, what they don't, time management, understanding the nuance of being on a team. This person has this person doesn't. How do you operate in that environment? Those are all things that we should be able to educate and help our young people develop. So I'm excited about it, and I hope that we can get there as a NCAA.
And for me, where I find, I get excited because, as you mentioned, the law school, the business school can really help with that. And I feel like our, alumni community can help with that as well. I get so excited when I see, the women's gymnastics team breaking the internet, or one of our basketball teams, putting off a highlight that, goes social and so on. And it just feels like there's opportunity there for us to actually support the athletes themselves, not just the teams, but to find ways to help, to make sure that the goodwill and the joy that they give us somehow kind of boomerangs back to them. So I'm really excited about it. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there also. And
yes,
hopefully, obviously this is one of those areas that's not yet settled, but as it is settled, hopefully we'll be able to all support you going forward, and get behind whatever ideas that you have that'll support the athletes.
Yeah, my goal is for UCLA to be a leader in the NIL environment. There's no reason with the assets we have living in Westwood, having a number one public institution in the country, having a top-notch athletic program, I mean, that just competes and wins and develops people. You know, I look at the assets we're in the media market that we're in LA. You know, we're not in some small college town. I mean, we have limitless opportunities to really help people take advantage of this, you know, because you're only an athlete, you're only a college student for so long. You've got a window. You know, we all can remember those 4 years, 5 years, maybe 6 years, however long it was. And those were some of the best years. So you want to help people capitalize on what they're doing right now and just make the most of it. So I'm excited about it, and I know that we're going to be a leader in this area.
Now, I saw one person jump in earlier with a question. I'm just going to remind you that we will take questions happily, either if you post them in the chat or if you, when you wiggle your mouse, you'll see there's a Q&A icon at the bottom. I can see those questions, and I'm happy to share them so that we can keep this conversation going. You know, one of the questions that we're getting from Derek Cox focuses on preparing athletes to manage the finances that they earn. So personal finance management, which I think, you know, again, we were talking about how the business school runs courses. This is an area that we focus on as well. And I'm sure that there are other pockets of UCLA that are concerned about this. Essentially, how do we make sure that these athletes who are, you know, sharing their bodies so that we can get joy and love and all this other stuff so that they don't end up broke? What can we do in that area?
Well, it starts with financial literacy, you know, and we have some of that in place now based on what the team is. Every team does it a little differently, but usually you would have someone or some kind of financial literacy sessions to understand earning power, different tools to save, you know, and that's it too. Some of this also, you know, I don't want to say this. This is an important topic. A lot of the traits and characteristics that you develop as far as your money management, you come into UCLA with. So some of it is helping people understand where they are on the understanding perspective. You know, you saw what your guardians or your parents or people did with their money, and that tends to influence significantly how you view money, your relationship with money. So we try to meet student athletes where they are, and based on that, or their prospects for moving on. You know, if we know that we're going to have someone that might be a high draft pick or may have an opportunity that many others don't, we're going to make sure we connect that young woman or young man with someone or a group of people, quite frankly, to help them with some of this understanding. But it's an educational process. You know, I don't know the numbers as far as how often people go broke, but I know a lot of that is kind of learned, and so what you try to do at our level is provide the knowledge base, the facts, and hope that they develop habits over time that help them save and do things the right way with their money.
And I will say this about that too, because I think a lot of people are shocked when we say that some of these athletes, student athletes, and then ultimately professional athletes end up in tough financial situations. Part of it is discipline. Absolutely. Sometimes you got to, you know, make choices about what discretionary spending you want to engage in. And that's where we can certainly help to a certain degree, helping folks understand kind of what's the life horizon of your earnings and kind of being able to make smart choices. But it's not just that. For those of you who don't have MBAs, understand that there's always a balance between risk and reward. And that some of the real opportunities that are out there for you, as Martin Jarmond just said, are things that you're only going to be able to capitalize on if you have a squad around you, right? So connecting you with more than one other person, because the reality is that while we try to teach these young people to be independent, right, to be able to function on their own, some of those opportunities are only available to you when you learn how to become interdependent, right? And helping give young people the ability to communicate, to understand who to trust, how to identify prospective opportunities and identify what the risks are, to be able to balance out their expertise with other people who are experts in other things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is not like, oh, I just need to teach them to balance a checkbook. You know, real long-term financial literacy is a lot more than that. And I love the fact that the athletic department has been focused in that area for years, but I recognize that there's going to be more work that needs to be done.
And Jay, to piggyback on that too, you know, some of this, quite frankly, is you've got to live and learn. there's a balance in athletics with hand holding, helping you so much, but also sometimes you got to fall. I see it with my 5-year-old. She's about to do something, and I'm like, I want to help, but then I say, you know what? I need her to experience that hot microwave right there in that bowl, so she understands. Some of this you have to go through, and what I like to think about it as, we're always here for our student athletes. We're always, this is home. We're going to help you grow. It's not going to always be linear. Growth is never linear, right? And so you have to understand that and provide the opportunities to succeed, but also to fail, and that's how you learn and that's how you grow. So you do some, but some of it too, you just got to live life a little bit to learn and understand.
For sure, for sure. And just, shameless plug here, for those of you who don't know, undergraduates at UCLA can take courses in entrepreneurship, and one of those courses is actually in financial literacy. So for those of you out there for whom this resonates, right, where you're still trying to figure out, well, how am I going to kind of handle my finances, whether you're a student athlete or not, just know that we do have resources at UCLA. Right? It's not just something that happens in the athletic department, but something that we take seriously university-wide, right? We do have another question for you, which is, what is the managerial relationship between you as the athletic director and the school's head coaches? Do you meet with them individually, as a group? Do you ever get like down in the weeds, or is it more of a kind of, hands off, they have their lane, you have your lane type relationship?
That's a great question. It's mixed. So we have obviously a number of 700 student athletes, and I think, I don't even know, I want to say we have about 19 or 20 head coaches. So we have a system of sport administrators, and those are usually assistant and associate athletic directors that work with a number of sports, and then they report up. So I can't know what's happening with all of our sports all the time, or all of our coaches all the time. That's not possible. There are a few that I have more of a direct hand in, that make more sense for the athletic director to get more involved with, your football, your basketballs, some other things. But usually we have a sport administration team that works with the sport. And then as things arise, or if I need to lend my involvement in something, I work with the coach and the sport administrator. So you don't have always scheduled meetings, but you try to pop in sometimes. Again, this is during a pandemic, so relationship building is hard. 2 weeks ago, I went to a women's golf meet that we had about 45 minutes from here, and that was the first time I met Carrie Forsyth, our women's golf coach, and the assistant coaches. Because we've been in an environment where you really are not, going to be on campus a lot. And our rowing coach, they had their first match this weekend, Saturday, and I haven't met her yet. I talked to her on the phone afterwards. We won, but I haven't met her yet. And so it's a little bit chaotic, but usually you have a team of sport administrators that work directly every day, operationally, academics, different things that come up that they're working day to day with, and I get involved when I need to.
And so with that in mind, because what you guys didn't catch was, as Martin was jumping on to this conversation, he had multiple devices blowing up. Could you just talk a little bit about what that's like when you have multiple direct reports who are really doing very different things, right? And you're trying to both be effective individually, but also obviously trying to influence them so that they can be effective, productive, successful, and so on. How do you manage your time, your responsibilities, relation, in a job this big? How do you break that down into something where when you can celebrate those wins on a daily basis? How do you, manage that time and your responsibilities?
Well, again, like we talked about earlier, when a lot is going on, you got to kind of try to simplify it as much as possible. And I think in terms of 3 Ps, right? And that's purpose, passion, and perspective. And so the purpose, we're here to serve our student athletes, give them the best experience possible. Our sport administrators and the people I'm blessed to work with, my job is to help them be their best. I serve them. So I constantly am thinking about or trying to help them do what they need to do. A lot of them are experts. I don't have all the answers. So I try to rely on our team as much as possible, because usually when you have a diverse set of people, diverse set of thoughts and perspectives, you usually make good decisions. And that's what I believe in. But you got that purpose, then you got to have passion. We talked about that. You got to have an energy and a drive and a relentlessness to you to really do a great job, And so I think you have to have that energy and passion. And then you're gonna make some mistakes. You're gonna fall short here and there. And so then you got to come back to that final P, perspective. And you got to be able to reflect and look at, okay, this is where we are. This is the situation. This is how I could have gotten better. This is what I would do next time. What did I miss? But also too, the sun comes up tomorrow. It's never get too high, never get too low. It's not always as good as it seems, nor as bad as it seems. And so I really believe in that purpose, then passion, and then perspective. And it's kind of a repeat cycle. But I try to help the people that I work with. I try to let them do their job, do what they're good at. But also too, when I need to correct something, I do it. I'm a big believer in candid feedback, being straight up. Hey, this is something that fell short of what my expectation was, and let's talk about this. And this is why I saw this differently. Tell me how you saw this. With coaches, sometimes help me understand that decision or what your thought process was behind this, so I can help them. And also I can learn, because I don't have all the answers. I'm not right all the time, but we can agree on that. We have the same goal, and that's to move UCLA athletics forward. So that's kind of how you work on that. You with your time, there's never enough hours in the day, right? But you got to really focus on what are the things that are most important, and work inside out, because there's a lot of things that could take your time. What's most important to the mission, to the purpose? Then what am I passionate? What's my energy with that, towards that? And then what's my perspective? Should I leave that alone? Should I do that? Does that need more attention? Should I probably let someone else, that's the perspective that you need to have.
All right. So with that in mind, one of the questions we just got is about our athletic facilities. Do you have a vision for where we need to go with respect to the facilities we have? I know we've just actually renovated and actually built some facilities fairly recently, but obviously that doesn't apply to every single sport. Do you feel like there are some areas where there's some opportunities, or places where you think, facilities can be utilized to a greater extent, or, or introducing technology? Like, do you have a perspective on that?
I don't have a complete perspective on that. I still have not seen all of our athletic facilities, believe it or not. But
I believe it.
I've seen quite a few of them, and I think we're in a good place. I really think we're in a good place facility wise. I mean, every coach are going to have a couple things here and there that they would like, but that's all of us, right? But by and large, I think we're in a good place facility wise. There are probably some things that we want to do. In a few sports, I want to think through more our nutrition for our student athletes and our wellness. Maybe a space to look at bringing student athletes together. I know that's not what we're doing here during the pandemic, but at some point we're gonna want to come back and be together, and how we fuel and do that. That's a space that I'm thinking more about. But big picture wise, we're in pretty good shape.
Okay. So the what you said earlier about kind of managing these different priorities and trying to communicate with people got me thinking about this issue around fundraising. We had a question about boosters, alums, et cetera. But I think more generally, you come from, a number of programs where fundraising was a pretty substantial part of the mission. And that's something that you're actually really good at. Can you talk a little bit about what role that plays, and how an athletic director can impact that, right? And what that means for the program. Obviously,
I was like, resources are critical. An athletic director has to spend a lot of time developing relationships with our alumni, with donors, season ticket holders, because you're always trying to develop that into a season ticket holder, or into a donor, or into an alum that is engaged, that gives back, whether it's their time, their talent, or their treasure. You want people giving back and giving to your program. So that takes up a significant amount of time, because our student athletes need the resources. That's not something I cannot do. I have to do that. And so we we have our Wooden Athletic Fund does a tremendous job of identifying and building relationships, but it's all about relationships and building those. So that's something that is a focus of mine. That'll become even more of a focus once everybody feels more comfortable getting together and doing some things. But I have a phrase when it comes to fundraising, 3 words: it's never enough. I always say when I get a gift, hey, I love that, I appreciate you, but it's never enough. I'm coming back. Because that's the expectation, and I don't want to sugarcoat that. That's what we need to be the best that we can be. And I know you want to see that in your Bruins. So help me, help you, help us.
Right. That's right. No, it's interesting because I recognize that we talk about trying to bring resources so that the programs are sustainable and so that we can grow them and keep them at a high level, that there's a lot involved with that, right? And so when we talk about fundraising, some of it is a communications play. There are certain things that you can do to kind of reach the masses, but a lot of the success really depends on the goodwill of a small number of folks who are really committed to the institution. And I'm wondering how you see kind of cultivating those relationships and how we can get people more closely connected with the journeys of these student athletes and what really is needed to support them.
That is a great question, Jay. That's something that if we figure that out, watch out. From an alumni perspective, I always try to connect what their memories, their passion was for UCLA, for being on campus. You try to tap into that because you give to what you're passionate about, in my opinion, or what really means something to you. You're talking about people's hard-earned time, hard-earned dollars. And so you really have to tap into what is it that is special to them about our organization. Are those moments, memories, and that kind of thing. So for me, we got to do a better job, and we do a really good job of this, but storytelling, tell the story of our student athletes, tell the story of what it looks like. Right now there's a couple of student athletes that have gone through an injury. I know there's a young lady on our women's soccer program right now that had an injury, and she's starting to chronicle it on Instagram, and from surgery to the day after, and then treatment and rehab. And that's a story. People see, you see the goals scored and the happiness, but you don't see the struggle or the constant grind of getting back to doing something you love. By the way, when you're talking about going through adversity or an injury, that's something that a lot of people can relate to. So that's a story, but that's a different medium that we're telling that. We got to do more of that, because I think once you are engaged in that way, in that level of a young person, you want to help support that. So I think that's something that we got to think more about.
I love that approach to kind of storytelling, and it's critical. And it reminds me now, circles all the way back to what we were talking about at the beginning, which is this Nike Jordan brand relationship, because obviously what better storytellers when we talk about brands than Nike and the Jordan brand. Can you just talk a little bit about the thinking that went into that? You sitting here juggling the relationship we have and how we're going to make that work, and then trying to think about, okay, so what can we do next? How did we even get to a point where Nike was in the conversation?
Well, everybody knows Nike. I mean, they're a global leader. They're innovative. They're best in breed. They're best in the business. And so there was always an awareness of Nike. And at 2 of my previous institutions, they were Nike schools. So I had some relationships already with some people in the college space at Nike. So it was always a possibility, but something that we had never done. So you have to do more of your due diligence. And as far as the Jordan brand, I just think the world of the Jordan brand. Obviously, with The Last Dance this summer, a lot of younger people got familiar with Michael Jordan and that brand. And then after the George Floyd situation, the Jordan brand stepped up, and I think they donated $50 million over 5 years to social awareness, social justice in communities. And that resonated with me, because that's UCLA. UCLA gives back that way. We serve our community. And so that was an interesting piece for me as far as the Jordan brand. And then I was able to connect with some of our alums, Kevin Love, Russell Westbrook. Russ is a Jordan brand athlete. And so, he kind of talked more about the importance of Jordan and what that brand is. And then Kevin Love shared with me from a grassroots basketball perspective, how young people love wearing Nikes and Jordans. You know, it's like, it would help so much. So I was able to tap into those guys, and they gave me some great feedback. And then it just came down to with Nike. For me, it was a non-negotiable. It was, we got to be Jordan brand if we're going to go here. And I don't know if we're going to do it if we can't be Jordan brand, because that's going to separate us. Again, I'm talking about where are we going, you know, and when we talk about elite, and it's a mindset, and it's the mentality, and it's the best. That's Jordan brand and Nike. And so for me, it was one of those situations where we needed to be Jordan brand. And we pushed that, and we talked about the synergies that would be UCLA athletics and Nike and Jordan. And that was important, because that was going to separate us. There's only four other schools in the country at this level that are Jordan brand schools. So we would be the only ones in the Pac-12, all of them west of Oklahoma. And that was, again, an opportunity to make us distinctive in who we are in our approach. And that's who we are. You know, we're not like everybody else. We're UCLA. And so that Jordan piece was significant in us going with Nike.
So with that in mind, obviously you had some clear objectives with respect to what you wanted out of a brand partner. Just more generally, especially now that you've had a chance to at least let the seat get warm. I know you've been busy and there's still some listening you need to do, but do you have some goals, some more kind of bigger picture goals, or do you have a sense of how you want to measure success going forward? Again, you know, we've talked about developing these young people and making sure that they're the best they can be, and obviously trying to make sure that they're fully capable of expressing themselves when they leave, you know, the friendly confines of Westwood. But with respect to the athletic program generally, or to specific sports or disciplines or anything, do you have any kind of KPIs or goals that you want to make sure that folks are focused on for the next, you know, couple years?
KPIs, I haven't heard that. What's KPI?
Key performance indicators. So, you know, often when there's a note, like a number, is like, oh, well, we want to peg, you know, we want to have all of our games, all of our weekend sporting events at 60% attendance or higher, or we'll know we're rocking out when we have 1 million followers on Twitter, or we know we're doing it right. Like, so are there any things for you that you feel like you'll know that you won, that you did what you came here to do when you see fill in the blank has happened?
You know, the answer to that is I don't know those yet. I'm still in that early process of again, learning who we are, where we're going, who do we want to be. I'm in that process. We're going to develop a strategic plan at some point once we kind of get more probably in person and can kind of, you know, build some of the relationships that we need to kind of assess where we are and where we want to go. So I don't have that. I focus on every day. You know, during this pandemic, the biggest focus this year was creating as safe as possible for our student athletes to be healthy and safe in this environment to compete. So that's been the focus, and that's like every day. So I haven't really had a chance to delve in, you know, what does success look like in 3 years? I've been trying to figure out what does success look like in 3 hours when you're talking about a football season or basketball or soccer, trying to get back, supposed to play volleyball. Do we have to wear masks, and what's that look like? You know, you're dealing with all of those things to try to get through this year. And that's not even counting the business side of it, financially taking a hit because you don't have tickets sold and fans and that kind of thing. So it's really been more about, let's navigate these waters, these uncharted waters. Let's make sure we stay afloat. Let's stick to the mission of helping our student athletes be the best they can be. And by the way, a big part of that is competing, doing what they love, having the highs and lows of wins, losses, training, sacrifice. And so that's been the focus. So I don't have that yet. Eventually I will have those KPIs, but right now is how do we get through these seasons? How do we prepare for when fans and students can come back? What are we doing protocol wise? It's those kind of things that are in the near distant future that I really focus on.
It's funny because I think about how successfully we've been able to actually have our young people compete, knock on wood,
Knock on it.
without dealing with lots of infections and game stoppages and stuff like that, cancellations. And obviously, when you set a goal, it tends to work out. So I'm pretty optimistic as to what we have going forward. My last question, I think I've asked most of the questions from others. My last question for you is there something about the athletics program that you want our alums and other stakeholders to know that you don't think they know already?
I don't know if they know this, but for us to be excellent consistently, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take alums listening that haven't been involved and engaged in our athletics program to get involved. And what does that mean? That means buying a ticket. That means those first couple football games when the students are off camp or not here, coming to a game. We play Hawaii to open up next year. Then we got LSU. That's going to be a big time game, second game of the year. We need fans there. We need energy. I would tell you that people underestimate their impact on a program. When you support, when you're positive on social media, when you're not negative all the time, when it's not just your money. Hey, that's great, tickets and donations, but also just we all need champions. Somebody called me on Twitter, I think Martin Jarmond is just a cheerleader for athletics. You're right, I am. That's part of my job, because you know what? There's recruits that are looking at that and they see the energy and they feel it and they say, I want to be a part of that. There's a reason. There's talented staff that we're trying to recruit to Westwood that I want them to see, hey, I want to be a part of that. We're always in the recruitment business. And so I would tell alumni and fans out there, get engaged, be positive about your athletic program. Get involved, because it's going to take all of us to realize the goals that we have for our programs. It's not going to be me. It's not going to be a coach. It's not going to be a student athlete. It's going to be all of us collectively going the same direction, getting behind us and being positive. And so that's one thing I would say is it's never enough. Whatever you're doing, it's not enough. We need more. We need more.
You heard it. You heard it straight from the source, y'all. We need more. It's not enough. It's not enough.
Never enough.
Right? You went to one women's basketball game before the pandemic hit. This year, I need to see you at 3. You liked that post with the women's gymnastics team. Now I need you to start retweeting, right? You're excited about our team, our men's basketball team making the tournament. Now we need you to be there in some of them preseason games, right? It's never enough, y'all. So
that's right. It's never enough.
So with that, first of all, Martin, thank you so much for spending some of your limited time with us today. I really appreciate it, man.
Oh, Jay, no, I appreciate it, man. This was good. And, Bruins everywhere. We appreciate the support. Follow us, UCLA Athletics, at Martin Jarmond, and like I said, we're moving. We're going in the right direction, and there's a palpable energy, and I hope that everybody can feel it and be a part of it.
Right. And for those of you where you heard this conversation and you're starting to get curious about some of these business aspects, what's going on with name, image, likeness, with marketing, with brand partnerships and all this other stuff. Again, at the business school, we actually have courses and they're open to the public in the summertime that you can take that will tell you more about the business of sports and so on. If you have questions about that, you can follow us at Center of Memes on Twitter. You can find out more at our website and stuff like that. But just understand that this is a big, complex world. And, simply, having great players out there playing, to the top of their game doesn't, that's not the entire ecosystem. There's more to that story. And we need people like Martin who care about the whole person and the whole program to make the whole thing work. Right. So hopefully today you got a chance to understand kind of a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes, but understand that this is just one part of a larger conversation, and we welcome you to join it. So with that, thank you, Martin. Thank you, everybody else. Have a wonderful Monday and a wonderful week, and we'll see you back.